Some retro sounds for you. Brian Adams cuts like a knife, but it feels so right. John Dougherty is here. He's here for Bookaroo, the Children's Literature Festival.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Hello, Irishman. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Hrishi. Thank you for having me. I'm
Wonderful.
fresh off the plane.
Yeah, you're fresh off the plane, and might I add, you're no stranger to Mumbai, considering you were here for a literature festival a while ago. How did that go?
In December, that was a lot of fun. I met some great people. Did a panel with Nanda Nadev Sen.
She's beautiful, isn't she? Oh my God,
she's lovely.
She's lovely. Yes.
I really like her. And did some of my own events as well. Just had a great time, and I'm looking forward to having at least as much of a great time at Bookaroo.
I reckon more, because this is what you do. This is children.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of fun going to see some of the talks on kind of modern feminist thinking and that kind of stuff. But just to be at a festival that's aimed absolutely at children, and that's taking into account what they want and what they need, and what's there in literature and for them, it's terrific. I love Bookaroo.
Mount Litera International School. This is in Bandra East. Okay, what you have to do is you have to get out to Insider and register. Though I suspect there are not too many seats available, but nevertheless, show up. Yeah, don't worry about that. And both days, which is Saturday and Sunday, which is tomorrow and day after, we're kicking off at 11 a.m. So there's a pig up my nose. Is your picture book? And I'm sure there's going to be a bit of that at the festival. Yeah,
there absolutely is. I actually wrote it over 21 years ago.
Wow!
And it got published last year.
And they say the struggle in the Indian movies. 2 decades before the publisher said, "Let's go ahead."
It was one of the first stories I ever sent off to publishers, and just at the time, people weren't interested in it. And I think it's probably just about changing fashions in the industry. But every few years my agent would send it out again, and no one really picked it up. And then a few years ago she sent it out, and Egmont got back in touch straight away and went, I love this, and I've been passing it around the office after it's coming from.
And you have an illustrator who I reckon you've worked with her for the very first time on this one.
That's right. Yeah, I've never worked with Laura before, and a lot of people think that when you write a children's book, you get together with the illustrator and you do it all, and then you send it to the publisher. That's not how it works. I sent the script to the publisher, and then they choose the illustrator. Very often they'll go, "What do you think of this illustrator?" But if they think an illustrator is really right for the book, then it's their decision, because they're paying to have it published.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think Laura is just terrific. And, I don't really think of it as my picture book now. I think of it as our picture book.
It's amazing.
Which was difficult in a way, because it was my story for, 20 years before she got hold of it. But she's very much, it's the book it is because of her as well as because of me.
Liam Payne, Rita Ora, For You. Back with John Dougherty up ahead. Hot current hit there. Liam Payne, Rita Ora with For You. John Dougherty is in studio. He's a writer, he's a musician, he's a poet, all of that rolled into one. But the special part is his audience is kids. And if your parents are children, you ought to take your children to Bookaroo. The festival is tomorrow and day after at the Mount Litera School International. 11 a.m. onwards. Tickets are at Insider, and seats on site if not available online. So please do show up, parents, with your kids. Much out with John.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
So, stink bomb and ketchup face are now part of English folklore, I assume.
I'd like to think so.
Many books. And describe the characters to me.
Okay, well, the stink bomb and ketchup face themselves are a brother and sister who live on a little island called Great Kerfuffle, where some just crazy things happen. I mean, my publisher likes to describe it as Monty Python for kids, and it's got a very strong meta-narrative streak. The children know that they're in a story, and some of the other characters know they're in a story. So there's bits like in one of the books, they go to the library to ask the librarian to look in the book that they're in to tell them what's going to happen next, that sort of thing. Or there's another one where, they're in chapter 23 and they make a phone call back to chapter 19 to get help. It's in some ways you might think of it as a bit of a challenging concept for kids, but actually it's just bonkers and it's fun, and it's the sort of thing that a lot of kids, it really tickles them.
So what are you doing at Buckaroo in terms of the workshops or the sessions you're doing? One is called Pigs and Giants.
Pigs and Giants, that's for the very little ones. With that one, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be telling the story of There's a Pig at My Nose. And I'm also going to be talking about Finn McCool. Finn McCool is a famous Irish giant of legend, and there's this story about how he had this argument with a giant who lived in Scotland, and they built a causeway across the sea so they could fight each other, and then Finn thought better of it, and his wife had to play a trick on the other giant to stop him getting in trouble. So I'm going to be telling that story. I retold that one for the Oxford Reading Tree, which is a reading scheme that schools buy in. But it's just such a good story that I like to retell it, extempore rather than looking in the book sometimes and act out the giants and run around the hall a bit and that kind of stuff.
John, it couldn't be easy getting children's attention, considering all of them have minimal attention spans. And I think it's a little overrated when people turn around and say, oh my God, you have to be funny with kids. You have to be funny. I don't think you necessarily have to be funny. But let's hear it from you. What really works with the children? What do you do? What do you tell yourself before you go into a gig or a performance or a session?
Well, I think funny does work. But actually, it's... In some ways, it's very different from talking to adults, but in other ways, it's not. Because if you're trying to hold the attention of a room full of adults, you have to say things that grab their attention in an interesting way. And sometimes that will mean telling jokes. Sometimes that will mean being funny, but sometimes it will mean just being exuberant or being interesting or just talking about things that they're going to be interested in. And it's the same with children. I mean, my sessions do tend to be very funny, and there's a lot of laughter. But sometimes I talk to other writers who are maybe starting out and who go, I'm not sure what to do. I can't do the things you do. I can't do the things that person does. And I say, no, but you can do the things that you do. And it's about knowing what you have to bring to an audience and bringing that rather than trying to be somebody else.
Messages and back with John Dougherty in just a bit.
94.3 Radio 1.
Celine Dion, Treat Her Like a Lady. John Dougherty, the children's author, is in studio, but they just call him an author. Would do him a great disservice. He's a poet, writer, all-round good man. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Radio 1.
There's also the poetry stuff that you do. Your poems, there's a collection of them called Dinosaurs and Dinner Ladies.
That's right, yeah.
So tell me a bit about that.
Well, I've been writing poems for a long time and trying to get somebody to just publish one here and one there. And then I met a publisher called Janetta Otterbarry and was telling her about my poetry and said, would you like to have a look? Thinking maybe she'd, put one or two in a collection. And she took a look at some of my poems and said, do you know what? I'd like to do a collection of just your poems. So that was published a couple of years ago. And it's quite wide-ranging stuff. I mean, this collection I've written over a number of years. I think there are a couple of poems in there, actually, that I wrote when I was still at school. Which, if you could see me, you'd realise that's a very long time ago now. And then there's some other stuff that I wrote specifically for the collection, and a lot in between. Again, a lot of them tend to be funny, but not all of them. There's some thought-provoking stuff there. There's some stuff that I hope is quite touching too.
And you are doing a session at Buckaroo. For those of you tuned in late, he is at the Children's Literature Festival, Buckaroo at Mount Litra International School, Bandra East tomorrow and day after. He's doing a total of 4 sessions. So that one's called Pigs and Dinosaurs. What's that going to be about?
Well, like the session for the younger ones, I'm going to be doing There's a Pig Up My Nose, but I'm also going to be doing some poetry in that session. I might do a bit of poetry in some of the other sessions as well, just scattered about, but this is going to have a bit more of a poetry focus, as well as telling them the picture book, reading the picture book. I'm going to be sharing some of my poetry, talking a little bit about poetry, and some of the misconceptions we have about it. Because when I was at school, I was really put off poetry, because what would happen would be that the teacher would give us all a poem and then go, "Now, what is the poet trying to say?"
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You go, well, it's just there. It's on the page. No. We've got to analyze it and pick it apart. And I don't think that's how we should approach poetry. I think it's useful. That's a useful skill to be able to have. But when you listen to music for the first time, you don't go, right, listen to the bass line. What's the bass line doing? What's the melody line doing? Where are the harmonies? You just enjoy the music. And then when music is part of you, when you've listened to a lot of music and you love it, then you start going, oh, how does this work? What's that deeper sound? That's the bass guitar. What's it doing? How's it interacting with the drums? And the same with poetry. I think first you learn to love poetry for what it is, and then you start to analyze it and see how it works.
Alana Miles, Black Velvet, back with John Dougherty right after this song. Alana Miles, Black Velvet, John Dougherty is here, the children's author, poet and singer-songwriter. And the reason he's here is because Buckaroo, the Children's Literature Festival, happens at the Mount Litra International School, Bandra East tomorrow and day after. It's absolutely free of cost, but you do have to register. So you get on to Insider and register, and if it says all sold out, you still land up at the venue, because there are seats which are being kept aside for people who show up at the venue. Let me also tell you, it's not only about book reading and literature sessions, it's a lot of fun. There's crafts, there's some clay making, lots of fun food stuff if you're a bit of a foodie. So all in all, it could be a great family day out tomorrow as well as day after. More conversation with John.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Radio 1.
Well, I grew up reading Enid Blyton and Five Fine Doubters and The Secret Seven and things like that. Give me a young sleuth, and I would take it even today. And I believe you have Jack Slater, who's an investigator. One of your books is, or a series, is it?
There are 2 books about Jack Slater, Monster Investigator. Yeah, he's kind of a young private eye who investigates the monsters under the bed. The idea is that the monsters under the bed are real, but kind of when you're a grown up, you kind of forget that they're real. So there has to be a ministry run by children to sort those out, because the adults won't do anything about it. And there are a couple of adventures in which Jack has to go down into the monster underworld and find out what the monsters are planning.
And from having a private child investigator, you have a Greek god, which is Zeus.
That's right. Yeah, my very first book to be published was Zeus on the Loose, which was about the Greek god Zeus turning up in school. I kind of, people tend to study the Greek gods at some point in primary school in the UK, and one of the things that they do is build little temples out of cardboard and that kind of stuff. And I just got to thinking, well, what if, nobody's building temples to Zeus anymore? So what if Zeus went, well, these cardboard temples they're the best I'm going to get at the moment, so I might as well make the most of them and turn up and demand to be worshipped. So it's a bit of a sitcom, really, where you've got these 2 kids, Alex and Charlie, trying to keep this Greek god hidden and trying to make sure the teachers don't find out and trying to stop him causing trouble, while Zeus is just going, well, I'm a god, why isn't everybody worshipping me? Come on, where are my sacrifices? Hey, why don't we have a Trojan War in the school playground?
And when you do tell these stories, you use certain props. I've seen a video of you, I think, doing a Zeus story, paper temple. which you've held up for the kids and things like that. Yeah.
I think actually that might have been one that was in the classroom where I went to one school where because there's this bit where when Zeus appears, he appears in the temple, but because the temple's so small, he ends up kind of wearing the roof on his head and standing on the floor, so wearing it like a sort of daft hat. And this school I visited, they said, right, year 4 have got a special surprise for you. And I went in and they were all wearing hats that they'd made to be like Greek temples. So I don't tend to use those props as such, but if they're there, I'll go, hey, look at this.
Okay, we're going to do some messages and come back for a last leg of conversation with John Dougherty, and this time there's going to be some music, so hang by for that.
94.3 Radio 1.
What a classic. Paul Simon, Graceland. This could be Graceland for you. Buckaroo. It's at the Mount Litra International School tomorrow and day after, starting at 11 a.m. And there's some of the finest authors, not just in the country, but around the world, who write children's books, who help children with crafts, with all kinds of creative things. All of that is happening. You can register at Insider. It's absolutely free of cost. If you can't register, you're unable to, or if it says sold out, then just get to the venue. And remember, it's a family day out. A last leg of conversation with John Dougherty. He's in town and raring to have a go.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Radio 1.
So, Bansi O'Hara.
Yeah.
That's another interesting character. So, who is she? Who's Bansi?
Well, Bansi, in short, is a girl who discovers 2 things about herself. 1, that she has the blood of the fairy people running through her veins, and 2, that the fairy people want it back. She's half Indian. Well, she's British, but by heritage, she's half Indian and half Irish.
Nice.
Yeah. And when I thought of the character,
So, which explains Bansi, because Bansi actually is flute. Yeah, in Hindi.
Yeah, I didn't know it meant flute. I probably did. I probably looked up the name at some point, but it's been a while. But yes, it's an Indian name, an Indian first name, an Irish surname. I've taught a couple of children. I used to be a teacher, and a couple of children who passed through my class were called Bansi, and that's where I pinched the name from. But I wanted to write a child of mixed heritage. 1, because I think they're underrepresented in books, so those things are getting better, and because that's my niece and nephew have that heritage. My brother-in-law's parents came over to the UK from India in the 50s or 60s, and I just thought, there's nobody like my nephew and niece in books. I'd like to write somebody who they can identify with culturally, if you see what I mean, And at first it was just, this was going to be who she was. And then as I wrote the story, I realized that actually her heritage played a really important part. And this explains why this is the first time that the things that happen in the book happen.
Wonderful. So, Literacy Hour talks about a dead louse.
Head louse.
Head louse.
A head louse.
Like lice and louse.
Yeah.
Parents wouldn't have been very happy with that. Dead louse, and he or she is fighting the comb. Is that it?
Well, there is a chapter where the head louse finds out about the terrible comb. He moves to somebody else's head and meets one head louse who's the only remaining survivor. All the others have been wiped out by the terrible comb. But actually, the idea is that Jim the head louse he's a very special head louse because when he sucks somebody's blood, he takes on some of their most defining characteristics.
Wow!
The child whose head he hatches out on is like the best listener in the class, the kid who's really good at listening to other people and listening to the teacher, and so Jim listens to what's going on in the class and realizes that he wants to take part, he wants to join in. And in the very first lesson, the teacher's reading a bit of Treasure Island, and he wants to find out what happens next. But the teacher goes, right, now to work. And so for, one of the threads in the book is this longing to find out what happens to Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island.
Lovely. So give out the website, where you are on social, on Twitter, Facebook, and the website, of course. Yeah.
On Twitter, I'm Writer Poet John.
Mm-hmm.
And my website is visitingauthor.com.
Visitingauthor.com. That's
Yeah.
fabulous. So you've been to 2 Buckaroos before this. How was it? How was the atmosphere? Yeah.
Oh, they were great. I love Booker. I should say it is an award-winning festival. At the London Book Fair last year, it won the award for Best International Festival. And that's not Best International Children's Festival. That's Best International Festival. It's very rare for an event that's just for children to win when events for adults are competing against them as well, as you probably know, which tells you the quality of the place, of the festival. My first one was in Delhi, and it was my first trip to India, and I just had the best time. I hung out with some fabulous authors. I met some terrific audiences. Indian audiences are just great. I just had the best time. And then a while later, they invited me back to do Buckaroo in Srinagar. And that was fun as well. I mean, obviously, Srinagar being a disputed territory, it's a bit different. In some ways, it was like coming home, because I grew up in Northern Ireland. So flying in and seeing, soldiers with submachine guns at the airport, it's like, yeah, this is just like Belfast in the 1980s.
Okay, listen, you have two sessions on Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face.
That's right.
And I absolutely insist that you play a bit of that, because you do all of that, don't you? You do a bit of poetry, you do a bit of storytelling, and you pull out the guitar and you make some music.
All the sessions have a bit of music in them.
Lovely.
And a lot of laughter and a lot about books and stories.
So let's have some.
Okay, this is the Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face theme song. I hope my voice is up to it. Like I say, I'm just off the plane, so please forgive me, audience, if I splutter and cough. In a place where anything can happen, it probably will when you least expect it to. And if you can't remember what the words are, you can doobity doobity doobie doobie doo. You can meet some very naughty badgers and a crazy king, a little girl with a very long song to sing, a lot of dwarves and a magical ring. No, wait, that's the Hobbit, and this is not the Hobbit, this is Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. They live in Great Kerfuffle, it's a wonderful place. Everybody lives in Great Kerfuffle, except for the people who don't. That's problematic. And if you're worried that it might get boring, well, I can assure you it won't. Even in the bits where there aren't many words, 'cause David Tassyman has done some pictures that are really cool. And there's a cat who treats you like a fool. And there's a boy who goes to wizarding school. No, that's Harry Potter, this isn't Harry Potter, this is Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. They live in Great Kerfuffle, it's a wonderful place. Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. Whoa, Stink Bomb and Ketchup Face. They live in Great Kerfuffle, it's a wonderful place. Live in Great Kerfuffle, it's a wonderful place. Live in Great Kerfuffle, it's a wonderful place.